Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Parishscope. This is the podcast that deals with the newsletter of St. John's Lutheran Church, Sand Prairie. I'm Pastor Chris Sansom.
And I'm Casey Dreamus. I'm the contemporary DPG at the church.
Contemporary DPG. We've had a few snowy days, a few cold days. We actually had to cancel church. Not this past weekend, but the weekend before.
That's right.
That was, super cold.
Yeah, it is freezing.
Super cold. But it's not now. Right now, it's Tuesday, January 23rd.
Mm-hmm.
It's starting to warm up. I just looked at the weather. I looked at my weather app. It's supposed to be like 50 degrees tomorrow.
Yeah.
50 degrees.
It's about time.
I want to get the pool out.
They've had, the funny thing is that the Pekin area, at least Pekin, the town, I don't know about Green Valley and Manitoba, but they've been pretty much, they've been going to school, but like every single town in this area is off. And so it's just been crazy. My wife's a teacher, and so today she goes snow day, and I was legitimately like, there is no way it's a snow day. How is it a snow day today? And
well, these snow days though, they haven't been any fun. Like if you get a snow day, you want like a few inches of snow at least.
Yeah, it's just crummy.
At least. Like I'll be honest. Like I love to go snowshoeing.
Yeah.
But you can't really do snowshoeing right anyway. I don't think you could do it right unless you have like good 4 to 6 inches.
Yeah.
I think 6 inches is almost minimum. And like you have that, like then it's kind of fun. Like I just love it. I love snowshoeing. It's like hiking with snow. It's fun. But I love it. And it's like, but it's hard to do when there's not like at least 6 inches of snow. And we haven't gotten anywhere close to that. I mean, even when we were supposed to get that, we didn't really get it.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So and then what did we get? Ice.
Yeah.
Nobody likes ice. You can't do anything on ice.
Just
ice is no
fall.
fun.
I took a real good fall actually because I was trying to clear out all the ice around my garage.
Yeah.
And, I slipped and I landed right on a bucket, right on my rib.
Oh, that hurts.
It
hurts even to think about.
Yeah, it didn't feel good. And now I have 2 little kids, and I'm a rough houser.
Yeah.
And so they're jumping right on me, and it's killing. It really hurts. But
they know your weakness now.
I know. And now it's like they jump on me so many times. I'm like, do I have a cracked rib or something? But I think it's just because they're jumping on me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's just not nice out. My son every day goes like, "Oh, we're gonna go out and make a snowman." He's so excited. It's like, no, there's nothing, man. I'm sorry, there's nothing out there.
We need some actual snow. We had like no snow last year, and like this year, man, we had a couple good scares though. Like, oh, you're gonna get 3 to 5 inches, and I was like, I'm game. Let's do it.
Yeah.
And then like nothing.
Yeah.
Like nothing. Anyway. Let's talk about some stuff going on in the world around us, shall we? I mean, the world's on fire. It's crazy. And I mean, okay, so here's the thing. Like, I know we kind of do current events, and I haven't really had a good one in a while, but like, can we talk at least a little bit about the craziness going on down in Texas?
What's going on? See, I must be very out of touch. A lot of things are going on in my life right now. But
we have a border crisis, right?
A border crisis?
We have a lot of illegal immigrants coming through the border. And basically, the federal government has they kind of have their own way that they want to kind of work through this dilemma. Mm-hmm. The guy in charge of that is Mayorkas, I believe his name is. At least I think that's the guy in charge. Anyway, but Texas, the state of Texas, has been trying to do certain things to kind of help stop the flow. So they put up razor wire. They put these buoys in the river that you can't really swim around to stop people from swimming across. And basically what it comes down to is like the government came out and said it's illegal to have those buoys. They actually sent people down to cut the razor wire.
Oh, wow.
And so, like, there's this really heated battle between Texas and right now the federal government to the effect that basically Texas made it illegal to cross the border illegally. Now you would think, well, isn't it already illegal? Yes, federally.
Yeah.
But the state didn't ever have that. Now they have that in the book, so they can now arrest people for illegally crossing the border.
Oh, very interesting.
And then the state of Texas took over some parts of the land and basically told the federal government to get lost.
Yeah.
And they kind of like kicked them out.
Man, that seems that just doesn't seem like Texas,
Right? Being bold and right.
Saying, don't tread on me. Okay.
Yeah. But it does kind of lead to a lot of questions like should Texas be doing this? Should we be on Texas side? And where as Christians, do we kind of fit in this whole mess?
Yeah.
And I mean, it does kind of bring about a lot of questions that deal, especially if we're going to look at like Romans 12 and 13, specifically 13, where Paul basically commands us to obey our federal governing authorities.
Mm-hmm.
And now all of a sudden we have two governing authorities basically saying two different things.
Yeah.
And they're kind of at each other's throats. Now, what's even worse is I believe Texas got upset with them always cutting the wire down, the wire. They put a stop to it. It went to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court actually sided with the federal government, said they can do this.
Oh.
And then the Texas turned around and like sued the federal government for like 2 or 3 things. Like I can't remember.
Geez, yeah.
Again, it's a hot mess. It's a hot mess. I think for a lot of people, they look at the crisis down there and they immediately say, well, Texas is doing the right thing. They got to stop the flow of illegal immigration and all that kind of stuff. And then a lot of other people kind of look at it and they say, well, the flow maybe should be stopped, but that's not Texas' job. That's the federal government's job. You're better suited by, kind of moving to the federal government. And again, now we're kind of getting lost into the muddy waters of this and that and so on and so forth. But one of the things that I will say is like, when we talk about federal government and then we talk about, it comes down to a fourth commandment issue, right? Fourth commandment, honor your father and mother. And basically how we go from there to the government is like this. We talk about how God has established parents to raise their children up.
Mm-hmm.
And to put it another way, God placed an authority over us, and that authority comes in the form of parents. Well, God has also established other authorities to be over us, and some of them include things like our government, and that comes in the form of police officers, even firefighters. Don't go over there. This is off limits. All these kind of things. These are all authorities that have been placed over us, and they've been placed over us by God. And so we kind of look at it like that. But one of the things that we always kind of also bring to the table is that just because God placed them in authority over us does not give them then the right to go against God's will.
Yeah.
Therefore, if a parent is abusing a child, that is not God-pleasing.
Yeah.
And that goes against the will of God. God does not want his children to be beat up and abused. And so we don't stand for that. We don't kind of tolerate that. And there are times whenever, other authorities have to come in and kind of take that place. And so what we need to do and what we need to discuss as Christians is what the federal government doing, is that, because again, here's the thing. There is no doubt that we have a crisis down there on the southern border. Like people are flooding through. Democrats and Republicans seem to at least agree on this.
Yeah.
The Democrats want to blame it on the Republicans. The Republicans want to blame it on the Democrats. The Democrats say it's because it's a broken system, and until they can actually get some new laws in the books and change things, the system itself is broken. The Republicans will basically clap back and say, well, under other previous Republican presidents, specifically with Donald Trump, you saw a significantly less flow over the border. And so therefore it's not a policy problem. It is in fact a leader problem.
Right.
So that's kind of the debate in a short, but I don't want to get into any of that, because the debate to me, especially whenever you look at what Texas is doing and what is allowing illegal immigrants through the border, does that actually go against the will of God?
Right.
And that's really the question. And if you're not pondering that question, you should.
Right.
You really should. And it has all kinds of variables. Government is usually thought about as a place that's of protection. And what do you do if your governing official is not protecting you? And are illegal immigrants coming through, is that a form of lacking of protection or not? Mm-hmm. Because if it is, and if you believe that that's the reason that government is established, then you might think that they are putting you purposefully in danger. In which case, you might say, well, something needs to be done. Again, whether it's through Texas or the federal government, something needs to be done to stop the flow. Now, there's other people that are going to say, well, we have a lot of resources and we need to be able to help those other people because we can. This is almost like a charity thing.
Right.
Again, I think maybe the other side of that, though, is like you also have to say you only have so many resources. Yeah. And will this diminish the resources of everybody else to a point where actual Americans that are here legally will actually get hurt from all this? So anyway, I just talked a whole lot, but
yeah, no, it is a good. There's a guy at one point, who did I can't remember. He did a class, a college course, whatever, yeah, and he had these huge. Glass jar, they were huge cylinder glass things. And he had gumballs in them, and they were all representative of the population of the world in different countries. And so he was talking about here's America's, and here's how many people are here, and here's what it's the size of what technically is the capacity of this country really. And it's he started just pouring in well, here's all the refugees from here and here, and it was overflowing. There was no way it could, you could keep up. And that was the point of we can't just say everybody go to America or everybody sneak into America because it's going to destroy America. And then all that's gone. Then where are they going to go from there when that falls apart? Mm-hmm. So it's a hard thing to talk,
And I realize in here we are talking about it. And again, I wanted to bring this up. It is a current issue. It is something going on right now. And to be fair, from a Christian standpoint, it can be very scary.
Yeah.
And part of the reason that it's scary is because, especially as we sit here in America, we look at the landscape of the world. We see a war going on with Israel and Hamas and the Gaza mm-hmm. Strip. We know Iran's probably going to get involved with it. We have Ukraine, Russia. We have China, acting a little fishy right now. And we're kind of going, okay, what's going on here? And so we have a lot of different things kind of going on all at once. And then on top of that, we have all these people coming through our southern border. And, some people have stated that a lot of them are male, and there's already been some terrorists that I know have snuck through. Yeah. And it's kind of this whole thing becomes very, very frightening as we look at the world around us, the landscape of the world around us. And it's very easy as a Christian sitting in America in the middle of Illinois to say, don't worry, everybody, God's in control.
Yeah.
And just kind of pass it off and be well, just don't worry about it. Well, that's easy unless you're in Texas, by the border. If you're in Texas by the border, you're probably worried about your family. Mm-hmm. And you're probably worried about your safety. And even now you're probably wondering, should I move? Because there's a lot of stuff going on here that's maybe not good. But you love Texas and you love your home and all these kind of things. And so, we do need to kind of do battle with some of these questions, even from a Christian perspective, because does God have it in his control? Absolutely, for sure.
Right.
God's in control. But, that being said, I guess we should say is this one of those scenarios where we feel the failure to secure that border is something that is outside of the will of God, mm-hmm. to the point where we feel like they are doing something bad, or are they not? Mm-hmm. And I mean, again, that's fundamentally one of the big questions that I do think that as Christians right now we need to wrestle with, because if we decide they are, then we might find ourselves kind of in support of Texas.
Yeah.
Kind of saying at least Texas is trying to do something, and it seems like the federal government is not doing enough.
Yeah.
Or we might agree with the Democrats and we might say, well, this is a broken system. The system needs to be fixed so we can do this in a better, more equitable way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. What are your thoughts? I mean, again, because I've been personally, guys. I don't necessarily know if I have like the silver bullet. Like I have the big answer. What I'm trying to do is like these are some of the things that even I wrestle with. Like right. I'm looking at this crisis going on down the border, and I mean, again, I know some of you like it's not a crisis, but maybe it is. I look at it like that's a crisis. A lot of people that come through the border.
Yeah, well, there's I think two very even halves in my brain of you got to know who's coming into your state and your country. I mean, you have to have an idea of who these people are because not that, I mean, I'm sure there are tons of people who are coming over who just want a better life or want to support their family. And it's, I don't think that's something we can all agree on is a good thing, right? We can all say like, well, of course you want a better life for your family or whatever it is, but there's also potential terrorists or there's people we don't know coming in. That's scary,
Yeah.
So it's a weird mix of, well, you gotta know, like you gotta know who's coming in, and if when you're the ones closest to it, like Texas is, and they're the ones dealing with it, and then a federal government's going like, no, you can't do this, you can't do this, or that's that to me is. I mean, it's like in school when they tell a kid like, if someone hits you, you can't fight back because that's like you're both going to get in trouble. But then I mean, how many parents tell their kids like, no, you fight back? I mean, I probably will tell my kid to do that. It's like, no, you defend yourself. Don't let them just hit you in the head repeatedly until someone comes and pulls them off you. Like, defend yourself. And I think that's I don't know. And as a Christian, I think my struggle is that there are people who probably want a better life, but I don't think that means they should come over illegally. But I don't know. It's like that's the struggle in my head is a little bit of that.
See, and I think deep down I really do agree with you.
Yeah.
And again, this is one of those things like, and I've said this before. Just for the air of clarity, I do, for the most part, from a political perspective, tend to lean more to the right.
Yeah, me too.
And I mean, that's not a knock on somebody who's leaning to the left per se. That's just being open and honest, in a podcast and saying like, yeah, this is the way I lean. My own personal beliefs, my own personal political beliefs are that a government is designed for the purpose of protecting its people, both at home and abroad.
Yeah.
Right. Threats that are out there, but also threats that are internal. Right. That's why we have police. That's why we have firefighters. That's why we have all these things. And to have such an open border, from what I understand.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm misunderstanding something. I don't think I am, but to have such an open border flies in the face of that idea of protection.
Right.
It's one thing to welcome a stranger into your home. It's another to just open your door and say, whoever wants to come in, come in.
Yeah.
And do whatever you want and take whatever you want, and we'll figure out who you are later. No. Like, what if you have kids in there? Like, you don't want just anybody, you're going to be protective of them. And again, this is honor your father and mother, right? Like, this is part of the reason that God gives you parents so that they can protect you. And in the same way, God gives us a government that is hopefully going to be good and righteous and protect us. Now, that being said, I'm also not gonna say that everything Texas is doing is great. Now, that being, I don't necessarily know what they can do better. Right. I feel like they're at their wits' end and they're like, we've tried everything, and that might be true. But then again, at the same time, I'm also the kind of person that says, there's a lot of creative thinkers out there. Is there nothing else that we could have thought of other than just suing the federal government and basically trying to steal stuff away? But, I will also say that I think some of this is a publicity stunt on behalf of Texas. And I think that in that purpose, they've done a good job.
Yeah.
I think they're doing some of this because early on, whenever people really started coming across the border, like nobody cared and nobody paid attention.
Yeah.
And I think Texas is finally saying, look, you better pay attention. Yeah. Everybody better pay attention. Now, maybe he's just doing that because he's a Republican and he really hates Biden and he wants Biden out of office. If that's his only ploy, then shame on him. But maybe it's because he wants people to finally see that there is something bad going on at the border and people need to sit down and take it seriously.
Yeah.
So that's my own kind of opinion. And again, I kind of go back to the fourth commandment with this. I think the federal government should do this. I know we get into states' rights and federal government rights. I do believe like that Texas needs to some degree respect the Supreme Court, which I know ruled on some of those things. Mm-hmm. Yeah, not much for that kind of thing, but
yeah, I don't know. It's very interesting how that stuff's viewed. I this might be off topic a little bit, but I like history. I don't know if I can call myself a history buff because I don't know if I know enough to really say that. But I have these recordings of their World War II broadcasts. So these were like what were being played to all of America. They're really they're super fascinating because it's like Jimmy Stewart, going like, you should buy war bonds. It's like it's crazy. It's crazy that all these celebrities from back then are on these things, but. There was one that they had a radio play, and the radio play was all about these people in South America who are trying to get to America because they were escaping their countries. And they got like on a boat. It took them to South America, and they were trying to get. And of course, there's also these like kind of spies or people who are working for like the Nazis, who are kind of trying to find these people who are trying to escape, and so they're faking like they're also trying to escape, and then they're trying to take those people. And it was so weird because it's a radio play, and the whole radio play was how these people were trying to illegally get into America, and it was almost like glorified. Like this play was like, of course they want to come to America. We're the greatest country ever, and kind of thing. And I thought that was really interesting because even in like war times, they were like, they weren't saying, okay, they did it the proper way. They're saying, yeah, of course they're going to try to get here even illegally because that's what they, need to do or whatever. And I think that's interesting to me that even back in World War II, they were like, yeah, of course they want to come here. It's a better life. It's a better place. And, so I don't know.
I do think that is one thing that as a people we sometimes forget. We hear so much negative press about our own country, and we do because like politicians beat up on each other. Yeah. We do sometimes forget that America is pretty darn awesome.
It really is.
I mean, our country is pretty phenomenal.
Yeah.
Like, and again, I just think that sometimes we forget that. It's like we've had it so good for so long that we sometimes forget how good we really, really have it.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that there's no other countries on the planet Earth that are that have good stuff. There are. There's plenty of countries that have a lot of good and interesting things.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Good rights and they take care of their people and all that kind of stuff. But man, America's pretty darn awesome. Yeah. I mean, they just are. Well, and so it makes sense that more people would, of course, want to come here.
Yeah. Well, and it always blows my mind because I think about this a lot because my mom's side of my family, they're pretty recent. I don't know, in the last 3-4 generations, they came over to America, so they weren't like here. They weren't here like in Revolutionary War times or anything like that. They came more recently, and my grandma was from Austria. They hid on a farm during World War II. When the Nazis took over Austria and everything, and then they came to America, and so I think about that a lot. About I have a really great life, and it's thanks to my great grandparents and my grandmother for coming all the way over here, and then that also my same thing with my other side. They were from Scotland, and they came over during a real horrible time. Things were really bad in Scotland, and they came here. And the horrible story was that husband and wife were going, and someone grabbed the husband and she got on, took off to America and never saw him again because someone grabbed him. And she came, and I don't know. It's crazy to think because my family have always grown up with a very strong, being very, very grateful for being here. Because we've just had that sort of more recently in our family history. So I'm very I don't know, the people who, and I know some, and I have some like relatives too, who they want to bash America and say it sucks and it's the worst country ever. It's like, when your grandma grew up or was hiding on a farm during World War II, I don't really know how you sit there and say this country is awful. Yeah. I've never really hid on a farm trying to avoid Nazis. I'm pretty grateful for that,
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean,
yeah, it's a pretty awesome country.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So, kind of moving on. I don't know. Do you want to do your question, or do you want to do my section on Revelation first? I think
let's do Revelation.
Okay.
First.
So if you could recall, last week I kind of mentioned this that I want to start doing a little bit of a segment on my Revelation class. Now, for those of you that were able to attend on past Sunday, that's awesome. For those of you that were unable to attend, do not fear. I'm going to have some videos coming out. Like I mentioned in the class, these are not videos that I created. These are videos from somebody else. However, they're good videos, and I'm going to put links to them in the app under a section for Revelation, and I'll talk more about that later. But the point is that like, even if you find yourself getting behind or you have to miss a week or something like that, you will be able to catch up, and it's completely okay. So that being said, a lot of what we talked about on Sunday was about, authorship, who wrote the book. And we talked, we briefly talked about genre, but I'm probably going to get more into this next week. But one of the things that we did talk about, and I can't remember if we talked about this all last time, but we talked about something called the Jonine cycles or circles. Mm-hmm. Have I told you?
I've never heard of this. Yeah.
Okay. So John, he has a writing style, and again, it's very Hebraic, and so like if you took a book,
Hebraic as in
Hebrew style, yeah. So and I kind of talked about this in class too. So for those of you that went to class, like this is like, I already know all this, but anyway, when you walk into an ancient synagogue, like think like first century, maybe older Jesus time, you would see two rows of seats, but the seats face each other. Mm-hmm. And so what they would do is in a synagogue is they would like have a reading from the Torah or a scroll, and then they would literally just sit there and they'd talk about it. Oh, wow. And they could talk about it for hours, and they would look at it from all these different perspectives. And so kind of a style of writing, of talking kind of emerged where you kind of look at things from different perspectives. And so like if you were looking at a book, and let's say you were just looking at like say the cover of the book, you're looking at it straight on. Well, it looks like a standard rectangle. But if you flip it on its end and you look at only the end of the book, it's still a rectangle, but now it's a much smaller, skinnier rectangle. Yeah. And then if you flip it around, you can see it's a much smaller, skinnier, still longer rectangle. And depending on which way you look at it, you're seeing it from these different views. And that was kind of what they did with words, with verses. So, for instance, a good example of this, and the one I tend to go to the most, is when you go to John's letters. So if you go to 1 John, which is one of the latter letters in your Bible, they have 1st, 2nd, and 3rd John. If you go to 1 John, you'll notice he talks about love. Mm-hmm. And then he'll talk about some other stuff. And then he'll talk about love. And then he'll talk about some other stuff. And he'll talk about love. And so the point of the matter is like if you read that like a modern day Westerner, where we read everything like a storybook, like where it has a beginning and it has a middle and it has an end, you'll be very confused. Yeah. John will seem like he doesn't know what he's doing, like he's like losing focus and regaining focus. Mm-hmm. But if you realize like that John writes in a kind of cyclical style, what you'll realize is he's talking about love the whole time. But he keeps whipping back around and looking at it from a different perspective. And so he's looking at it one way, and then he comes back to it, and he looks at it another way, and so this is what John is doing.
Yeah.
And so once you realize like that, you realize he's actually kind of spiraling in and kind of looking at the text. It's not a Western style of thought or text at all.
Yeah.
But it is something that John does.
Very interesting. That's
yeah.
Now I'm gonna have to look up. I'll have to look that up because now I'm intrigued on how that is laid out, like reading it.
Mm-hmm.
So okay.
Oh, you should. It's fascinating.
Say the verse again. What's you said in John, right?
So go read the book, the whole book. Go read the whole book. Maybe not tonight, but tomorrow or something. Open up your Bible, 1 John.
1 John.
The letter 1 John. Just read the whole thing.
Okay.
One sitting.
One sitting. Okay.
Like take a half hour or however long it takes. Just read the whole thing.
Okay. Interesting.
And yeah, I mean you'll follow his thought, but you'll see love kind of keeps coming back up.
Yeah. Well, and because that's something. I mean, I took a couple classes in college about sociology and stuff, and one of the things they brought up was sort of the idea. Well, not sort of the idea of our language has limitations on how we can think. Yeah. And so that's why, I mean, that's what is so interesting about the translation of the Bible and everything is how do you, it's like almost like we have a hard time understanding certain ideas because our language is just not the same. I don't know if I want to say better or worse, but there's just certain ideas
it's just
that
different.
Just don't. Yeah.
It's just different. And you're absolutely right. And it's the way your language actually does determine to some degree how you think. And it is fascinating. Whenever you get to inflected languages, that always kind of freaks people out a little bit. Like you can have the subject of the sentence at the end of the sentence. And like in English, that just doesn't make any sense. We just can't get around it.
Yeah, but I have dyslexia, so that's how I write most of my sentences. So it makes no sense.
You'd be great in the Greek,
I should have just learned Greek.
Just go for it. But like one of the things, especially in ancient Greek, Koine Greek, and Professor James Veltz was the one that kind of introduces this, and we get into like this whole idea of verbal aspect, and verbal aspect is basically trying to figure out what aspect is the verb bringing to the table. Now let me understand. So for instance, if I say, in English we would say past, present, future, right? Well, what does it mean when I say past? Well, that means that it happened. It's a past event. It's not happening anymore. If I say present tense, that means it's happening. We're right in the middle of it. And of course, if we say future, then we're saying that Greek doesn't do that at all.
Interesting. Okay.
Greek, I shouldn't say Greek doesn't do that. Greek does do that, but Greek is less concerned about that.
Gosh, I really should have done Greek. That sounds so nice.
Greek is just awesome, right? Greek is more concerned with how your subject of your verb is connected to your verb.
Huh, okay.
And so because of this, you get some like unique environment. So for instance, sometimes when we talk about the perfect tense, we talk about how it's something that happened in the past that has present tense, impact.
Oh, okay. So it's like this happened in the past, but the effect is still...
Yeah, the effect is still going on.
That's interesting.
Oh,
man.
I had recorded the video. It's still recorded. I still have it.
Yeah.
But I recorded it
right.
A while back. It was a past event that's still impacting me today.
Right. Yeah.
But Greek also does this thing where, so for instance, we can talk. So in Greek, one of the first words that you learn is the word loose. I loose my bonds, like I untie them or something like this. But we learn a straight up English, I loose, and And then Greek kind of poses that further question, like, okay, when? What's the scenario? Mm-hmm. So if, for instance, if the verb was pay and the direct object was rent, like, okay, I'm paying rent, how does that work in a sentence? I pay rent. Like, well, that's a silly sentence. Like, nobody actually say that. So in Greek, you got to kind of like look at how they're connected. And that's where it becomes like fascinating. I just started paying rent.
Yeah.
That's called inceptive. Or I continually pay rent. It's just something I continually do or habitually do. I do it every month,
Yeah.
So all of these different scenarios kind of come into play, and you got to kind of work through that.
Yeah.
And so that's more what the Greek is kind of concerned with, is that verbal aspect of like, how is the subject connected to the verb?
Mm-hmm. That's very. My worst subject was English.
Yeah.
And it still doesn't make any sense to me, honestly. It's like this comedian says how, what's the plural for box? And they're like, boxes. And they're like, what's the, what is it? Shoot, I messed it up.
You're
already.
Brian Regan.
Brian Regan. Boxing, oxen.
Yeah.
And then what's the plural for box? Boxing.
Yeah.
And it's like, no. And so
how about goose? Goosen.
Yeah. It just doesn't, it does not compute with my brain well. I never understood it. And that's what I find fascinating. But are you ready for my question?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Because this is sparked. Now I'm wondering, because as somebody, you studied Greek, and Hebrew, right?
Yeah,
all through college and everything. I should already know that answer. But if somebody, let's say someone who's terrible at English, wanted to really dive deep into text, do you recommend them just kind of grabbing just taking word for word? Okay, well, this is this Hebrew word or this is the Greek word, and all right, let me look up that word and see what that means, and like kind of try to figure that out. And then, do you recommend that, or as someone who maybe hasn't really studied that, is there sort of a danger to getting?
Oh, there's a danger to that.
Okay, that's what. Yeah, because I know, especially when I was in high school and I did like FCA and stuff, like Federation of Christian Athletes and stuff like that, I would, like, my mom was very into that, so I would look up, okay, what is this word? Mm-hmm. Or like, what does the word worship actually mean in like Hebrew or Greek? So what is the dangers of just kind of somebody just jumping in, like, I'm going to pull this one word and then I'm going to,
So the dangers of doing a word study is and this happens quite a bit. Like, there's a couple different what they'll call exegetical fallacies. So these are fallacies that you run into with words, and I'll give you a couple. I'll give you at least one example of each. But one of the first ones is to import our modern understanding into an ancient text.
Okay.
So for instance, the Greek word that a lot of times in our modern day Bibles is translated as servant is actually the word for slave.
Right.
As you might be able to tell, it's really easy to import a modern idea into an ancient text.
Yes.
They did have slavery in the ancient world, and it was absolutely nothing like what we consider slavery, because we are so dare I say, still kind of in a sense traumatized by what happened in the early years of our country, that we are only thinking about that form of slavery. That is not the slavery of the ancient world. And so we see that word and we kind of flip out. Yeah. And it's like, really, that is the correct word. That's the appropriate word. Servant just doesn't quite cut it. But you got to understand it from that differing perspective. And because of that, if you just do a word study on it, you're just going to find out that it's just slave. You'd have to actually dig pretty deep into the whole system of ancient world slavery. Mm-hmm. You can also, another famous one is the word dynamis. The word dynamis means power, strength. And that's literally just what it meant. It meant power. Like I have the dynamis to pick up a table, like I have the power, the strength. A certain man introduced that word and utilized it whenever he had an invention, and that invention was dynamite. And he used that word because it sounded cool, and let's face it, explosions, right?
Right.
But when you see dynamis in like an ancient text, it's not saying explosion.
Yeah.
Which many a well-meaning pastors has tried to use. Like here's the word here in the text, and obviously that's like explosive power. Like, no. It just means that like the person is strong, or they are strong enough for this, whatever it happens to be.
Right.
And so that's an example of that particular exegetical fallacy. And so that's one of the problems that you have with that. The other problem that you have with that is that just like many, many words, there are multiple different translations or words that can be utilized, and you got to kind of know the right one. And so going into a book and just looking up how, and let's see, and a lot of people do this where they'll say, well, this word can mean this and this and this and this, and I like this one better than that one. Right. And therefore I'm going to go with that. Well, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
In general, whenever you're dealing with like especially like dead languages, basically what you're seeing, and the reason that there's multiple translations of a word, for two reasons. Sometimes the word just means something completely different, right? Mm-hmm. We have this in English, right? Sometimes we spell it different, 222. But we also have other words like, bear, you know.
Right, yeah.
Is it a creature or are you streaking? It's like,
yeah.
And so you got kind of words that can have like a dual meaning. And we look at context to determine what those words mean. And so that's true. But then other times what we're seeing like the nuance of a word. Mm-hmm. One of my favorite words in Greek is called, and this is is a big, long, weird word. It's fun to say. It's splanchnizomai. Say that one 5 times fast. Yeah. Splanchnizomai. Now, splanchnizomai, a lot of times in our books our Bibles is translated as compassion, and that's certainly what it is, right? Like, okay. Like Jesus saw them and he had compassion on them. Well, more than likely that word there is splanchnizomai, but it's more than that. There's actually a whole thing to that word. The word itself means. And again, you can't really say this nicely in one word, but basically it means your bowels turn.
Oh, wow.
Now, in English, we tend to say things like, oh, he had butterflies in his stomach.
Right.
You had an actual physical reaction. Mm-hmm. That's what that word means. But how do you say that? Like, and Jesus looked and he had butterflies in his stomach. Well, that doesn't quite work.
Yeah.
His bowels moved. No, that doesn't work. That doesn't sound right. That's not accurate.
Right, yeah.
And so you say like, he felt something for them and had a physical feeling. Well, that doesn't sound right either.
Right, yeah.
And so we say compassion because that seems to be the best translation.
Right.
But if you were to look up that word in a lexicon, it might have all, one of the translations is going to be like basically to have an internal movement of the bowels. And like that's like, right. Literally what it's going to say. And it's like, well, but that's, and again, that's accurate. That's true. That's actually
right.
what it is.
That's what it says.
But I've realized, like, when you go down like a line, you're going to see that, and you're going to go, how does that have to do with that? Like, how does compassion and movement of the bowels have, how do those two things combine? And it's like you gotta actually read through all that stuff and understand there's a nuance there to that word,
right? To
say, okay, Jesus is looking on them, and he's having compassion. He's actually feeling compassion, like to a point where it's actually having a physical impact on him,
right?
Like Jesus, it's not just saying Jesus was like, compassion, like Jesus is actually like tore up inside,
has an emotional,
like he's having an emotional response, like a physical response that's emotionally driven from what he's seeing. So he's having compassion, like, and so that's maybe the best way to put it. Now, saying all of that, notice what we just did. Like we added some light to a text that maybe you've read 100 times, and we've certainly added that. And we added that by understanding the nuance of the word. But the problem is that if you just pick up a lexicon and start looking at how it's looked at, you're not going to understand that it's trying to describe a nuance.
Right.
That's going to take a little extra reading.
Right, right.
And unfortunately, that's not necessarily the easiest thing to do. And you got to have the right books. And
Right.
or you got to have access to the right books.
Yeah. Well, then I'm sure there's even people who have studied it that could probably give you a better insight that, than just like even a book, I'm sure. I don't know. I mean, because I think about that with like even in English. I think if someone came, we'll say when I was in middle school, we used to always say, we used to use a slang term of "that's so random." That was our slang term. Everything was random. It was like, oh man, this soda, it's so random, and that meant like cool or like awesome or what. That was, and it made no sense. Why would you say random? So what I wonder is I don't know if the Bible has anything that would be kind of referred to as a slang term for that time or something that maybe we just don't understand.
Oh, sure.
But, we read it and go, oh, well, that must mean this because that's what that word means, even though no one's ever going to look up the word random and it's going to say sometimes it was used as cool. It's like that's not a definition of that word. But for some reason we use it. I don't know if there's any of that in like the Bible at all. Like,
well, there's definitely some phrases that and again, realize like your English translators, as my one professor at seminary would say, your English translation is a first-rate commentary, and that's what it is. You are seeing the translator's what he thinks about the text, and so there is that kind of aspect about it for sure. But there are some of those phrases. One of my favorites is basically, the use of what's known as evocative is in our culture almost never done. But back then it was kind of it was a way of address. It was not considered rude. And basically you could say, hey, what's going on with, I could say something like, hey, Casey, what's going on with all this? And that's what I say, right? That's not rude.
Uh-huh.
In the time of Christ, it would have been like, hey, man, what's this to me and to you?
Yeah.
And
what's
like
this to me and to you?
So one of the fun examples is like if you look up the wedding at Cana in John 2, Mary comes up to Jesus and says, hey, you need to fix the situation. And Jesus says, woman, this isn't, what's this to me and to you? Like what is this?
I love that. That's a great phrase. I want to start saying that to people. Hey, what's this to me and to you? I like that.
And basically what Jesus is doing is he's basically saying, Mary, why should I get involved in this? Yeah. And and he kind of wants her to say, this is why I want you, and like that's what Jesus is doing. But if you transliterated it into a literal English, it would almost sound rude. Yeah. Woman, what's this to me and to you? Like it's just like this. Yeah. It just sounds jagged.
Yeah. Well, that's funny because I've heard comedians talk about like that sort of thing. How Jesus said like woman, blah, blah. And then they make a big joke of like, if he ever talked to me like that, sort of thing. So, but yeah, we don't, culturally and at the time, like maybe translation. I think about that when you hear the word in another language, it's like, do they sound me? Is it, I've heard people who they speak multiple languages and they've said how like when they speak their first language, they're a lot funnier and like smarter and they know how, but then when they get to this other language, they're so restricted by certain things that it's like, it just doesn't, they don't quite translate the same way as they do in their own language, Yeah. And so that's I don't know. That's a weird thing. I think about, like I said, my grandma was from Austria, and I think I never got to speak to her like in German because I don't, and I wonder what the difference of her would be if I could understand her in her actual language. Yeah. So I don't know. It's interesting.
It is. It's a fascinating thing. It is. I'd also say like when you learn other languages and a lot of their insults to us are just like, you're just like, what? You're like, what? Or they do this one, and I love some of the language things, like because I think if I remember correctly, this is in German, but it's also in Hebrew as well, and it cracks me up. The word potato, like in English we just say potato. In Hebrew, and I think in German too, it's called earth apple.
Oh,
and it cracks me up every time.
Earth apple,
yeah. And in Hebrew, the it's a phrase to say alcoholic beverage, and it basically translates to spicy water or spicy beverage.
Yeah.
It's spicy.
That's great. I still just love now how to got to start coming up to you being like, have you had any spicy water lately? What's this to me and to you?
What's this to me and you, man?
I love that. That's so great. I feel like if we had phrases that were more fun like that, maybe the world would be a better place if we could just talk like that. But
that's right. Bringing back the good stuff.
That's what interesting. Well, I think I don't think we should do it on this episode, but one of the things like I did in high school when I would do, again, FCA is I should say I got really tired of every time at my church we'd do anything. It'd be like, hey, we're going to go bowling. All right. And we're just going to enjoy fellowship. And then they'd say, oh, we're going to go do this and we're just going to enjoy some fellowship. Or they would use the word like, we're just going to fellowship and worship. And a part of me is like, well, if we're having a meal, is that worship though? I remember in high school, I was looking up like, okay, what's the Greek or the Hebrew? Like, what is this actual word? And are we using it correctly? But I think as far as time goes, we should maybe we should do that another time, because I would be interested to actually kind of dissect, just because I feel like people throw out some of those words a lot to just describe anything at church. Like, okay, we're all going to do the hanging of the greens, enjoy some fellowship and worship. And it's like, well, is that worship? Yeah. I don't know if that's technically worship. I don't know. So, maybe we'll do that I think we should do that another
okay, time. We'll save that. Yeah. Write that down.
Yeah.
Write that down. Write it. Topic. Here's something for you. Write that down.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, there's so much that the original language stuff that you can kind of get into, and
but you got to be careful, like you said, though. You can't.
Yeah, I mean, again, like I don't want to impede anybody. I don't want to say like, oh, don't study. But what I'm saying is like, learn some good study skills, and then go for it. And even if you don't, like, look, there's some, a lot of people have heard of Strong's numbers, and if you haven't, Strong developed a system of these numbers. Mm-hmm. And so if you buy a Bible that has Strong's numbers in it, what you can do is you can then find the Greek word.
Okay.
And then from there, you can kind of go to various dictionaries that have the Strong's code with them. And I think that's great.
Yeah.
Again, if you get a good lexicon that has a good stuff and you can kind of understand some of the things that are going on, I think it's a good thing. There's actually a set of books, and I don't know if we have them in our library. I'll have to check into this. But basically, it has a Bible, and it has Strong's codes, and then it also has these other codes for grammar. And then it has 2 other books that you can actually look them all up in.
Yeah.
So you can look up the grammatical stuff, or you can look up the dictionary forms of these things and these words. And again, I think those things are kind of good. I think they're really good. Get more in depth by all means. But also, just like anybody, seek help, seek an instructor. Yeah. Like, look, I'm the same way. Like, I mean, I study the Bible. I love research and studying, but I also read other people, and I also have friends that I think personally are probably smarter than me. And I also still, have professors that I don't necessarily, message them or stuff, but I see them on Facebook from time to time, and sometimes they'll post here, and sometimes, I still look at people that are maybe more learned on this particular topic than me.
Yeah.
To help me see some of the nuance that maybe I'm missing.
Yeah. Right.
And it's, hey, fair enough. There's been times where I've really missed it, and like I've had them to kind of say, no. But then I've also been able to return the favor, right? Like there's been times whenever they're like, well, what about this? And I gotta go, maybe not so much with my professors, but with some of my friends anyway.
Yeah, yeah.
And so yeah, I by all means, research, study. I love it. I just absolutely love it. But use a little wisdom, take a couple steps back, and don't just jump there. If you're reading the translation of a Bible and it's using a certain word to translate in translation, and you find that there's 10 other words that it could have used, and you like another one better, at the very least, do the due diligence to study and try to figure out why that translator would use that word.
Right.
That might make all the difference in the world.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Well, that's very interesting. I like that. All right. Well, I think, unless there's anything else, I think it's time
for church chatter. Oh, it's our favorite time.
It is
church chatter. Boy, I tell you what, things have been, things at church are going well. A lot of people have kind of commented on our live stream. And by the way, I just kind of want to put this out there. Like we had a few weeks where we had some pretty big bugs with our live stream.
Yeah.
And if you're out there and you watch the live stream and it's a week and like it just doesn't go well, text me and let me know.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, like nobody wants to hear complaints nonstop, but at the same time, it's like
be nice about it.
Be nice about it. But at the same time, like if there's a bug with the live stream, I'll be honest, I do not watch the live stream every week. And because of that, sometimes like it'll go weeks and weeks and I just won't notice. And until somebody like texts me or calls me and says, hey, did you know the sound was off? So I know there's some bugs. One bug actually I think is caused by our soundboard. I'll have to check into this.
Yeah.
But I noticed on our last live stream that, and I did watch this one, that anytime we had like a hymn or something, like it would be super loud and then it would be super quiet and then it'd be super loud again.
Yeah.
But only on the hymns.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like the rest of the service was fine.
Well, and I know for the late service that our issue really is that the mix for the live stream is a different mix than the actual in-house, like what you're hearing. So it's difficult because you can't really listen to the live stream because if you're in the room, you're hearing the room. It's a challenge. But if there's something to where, oh man, that guitar is so loud, it's like, let us know.
Yeah.
So we can
we're not perfect. We're trying to tweak it. But anyway, I know there's been some hiccups and I've been trying to work on that a little bit this week. Obviously we've had some ice. It was really slick.
Yeah.
It is not really slick now. When I left to come here, it was pretty much slush.
Yeah.
Yay, slush. But the roads were good and it was good. But obviously we've had some ice with that. So a lot of those things are going well. Again, Revelation study has been going awesome. We've had 1 week. If you missed it the first week, it's okay. And again, this is one of those things. Like if you missed 5 weeks, just jump in. Trust me, I got you covered. I got other videos that you can watch. They're not my videos because somebody else already did them and I like theirs better. No, I'm joking. I do the videos that I have, I do like. They're pretty concise. They're to the point. The presenter, I know him. Not real well, but he kind of is LCMS famous.
Oh, okay.
So he used to do a thing called Worldview Everlasting. He still has a podcast and stuff now, and he's pretty LCMS famous. Like he's known.
Oh,
his name is Reverend Jonathan Fisk.
Fisk, what a name!
Yeah,
That's
right. And so I have some of his videos whenever he taught Revelation, and I like him because he had the same professor I did, Professor Lewis Brighton, and so him and I kind of think alike on a lot of this stuff. He does go against Brighton on a few things. I'm not 100% sure I agree with him on some of that, but at the same time, I will say by and large I like his videos. I'm releasing them link-wise, at least I will be releasing them more based on where we are at. I don't want people to be like running ahead. So anyway, so I'll be releasing some of those videos. I mean, of course, if you really get desperate, you can hunt them down. I mean, they're on YouTube, so yeah, they're everywhere. So yeah. So yeah, I mean, in a lot of ways, though, we have a lot of things going. We're in Epiphany. We're getting ready for Ash Wednesday. That's February 14th.
Oh, wow.
It's a romantic holiday this year.
That's right. That's right. And after that, we are going to have to do. We're going to have a podcast where we eat some fish sandwiches. I'm just saying. Where we just do like a little review. Like, all right, we got some fish sandwiches here.
We're going to have fish.
We have to.
We have to. It has been decided.
Yeah.
We have to do some fish sandwiches.
Right under Greek and Hebrew, talk about worship and fellowship.
Yeah.
Right.
Worship, fellowship, fish sandwiches.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh man. I'm just trying to think of what else is going on. I mean, again, the ice has been the big story for us for a while, and I mean, again, it's kind of thawing. It's supposed to be warm tomorrow, so we're looking forward to that. In fact, it's supposed to be crazy warm tomorrow. It's supposed to be like 51.
Yeah.
This is Tuesday night, by the way, and we're looking at Wednesday, January 24th. And so it's supposed to be like 52 degrees tomorrow, so according to my phone.
It'll be a beautiful evening for the Wednesday service, which everybody's welcome to come to.
Wednesday service.
So,
yeah. We don't advertise that one enough.
Yeah.
Sometimes people don't. 5:30 p.m. Yes, even when there's not like Lent and Advent, we do have our Wednesday night service, Wednesday night crew. Got a faithful bunch that come to that, and it's pretty fun. And then let me see here. And of course, once we start Lent, kind of lost my train of thought there for a second.
That's all right. Well,
you notice
the people listening should know that it's almost midnight.
Yeah.
So it's okay. You're losing your train of thought.
We're still going.
I had a moment or two during where I kind of just was like, well, where am I? Oh, wait. Okay.
Yeah. That's right. But anyway, but yeah, so for Lent this year, we're going to do a look at the book of Exodus, the Exodus story. So pretty excited about that as well. And yeah, so lots of fun. So that's kind of what's going on at church right now. And yeah, I mean, again, I'm trying to think of if there's anything else. Of course, we got a voters meeting coming up this Sunday, which means we do have chili.
Oh, chili.
Yep. I was asked about that earlier today. Like, are we doing the chili? And I was like, yeah.
Now, when does the chili take place? Right after church?
Right after the second service.
Right after second service.
So right after second service, we're gonna be serving some chili downstairs. I am hoping to kind of have a cook-off.
Yeah, I mean
that's what I'm hoping for.
Whenever I hear a chili at a church, it's always a cook-off, isn't it?
I'm kind of hoping, but that being said, I will be honest. I have not advertised it near enough, and so we'll see if we have enough youth that are going to be able to participate in the cook-off. Otherwise, I'm going to win because I'm going to make a massive Nesco or two of chili.
You heard it here first. Unopposed so far.
Yeah. So if nobody is there to oppose me, then I'm going to be there with my 8 gallons of chili. I'm trying to think, like, one Nesco holds about 4 gallons. Now,
yeah.
I won't fill it all the way up, but like I still have 2.
Oh, but yeah, I mean, I don't know about some people, but there are certain foods that just the bigger vat of it there is, the more delicious it sounds to me. I don't know why. Not that I'm going to eat 8 gallons of chili, but there's something about just that much chili that I'm like, oh man, that sounds so good. Well,
and I'll be honest. So as some people know, I've been this last month, I've been doing the Whole 30.
Yes, you have.
And the Whole 30 comes with all kinds of restrictions. Like I can't, and just so you know, I'm doing this because I'm trying to live a little healthier and lose hopefully a little bit of weight through this whole ordeal.
I hope you lose a little bit of weight dealing with this.
Yeah,
that would really suck if you went through this whole thing.
And you know, from everything I've read about Whole30, the idea behind it is that it's only for 30 days. The idea is that you kind of give your body a chance to reset. Yeah. So you take out any non-natural forming sugar. So if the sugar's in like a fruit or a vegetable, it's okay. If it's not, it's not. You know, it's not okay. Yeah. But none of that. No dairy, because apparently dairy can upset people's stomachs and cause inflammation. Certain types of legumes. So no soy, soybeans. Yeah. I can do green beans, and I can do peas.
Yeah.
But like no added sugar with anything. And this is the thing that just blows my mind. I go to the grocery store and I'm like, oh, I'm going to make this and I need some diced tomatoes. And like, they added sugar to the diced tomatoes. Why?
Right. Yeah.
I grabbed a can of sweet peas the other day. Sugar was in the ingredients.
You know,
it was in the ingredients.
I kind of say I'm a very adamant no sugar added syrup type of person. And I don't understand. It's already sweet. It's just naturally like sugary and sweet. Yeah. And so I don't understand that people are like, oh, I can't have no sugar. I'm like, it's sugary. It's already like it tastes great already. You don't need it. Anyway, that's me. It's
like you go through the grocery store and it's like even our spices. Like I mean, obviously if you get onion powder, you got onion powder. But if you get one of those spice mix, like you know, for chicken or for pork, it's probably got sugar in it.
Yeah. Oh, if it's like a rub or something. Yeah.
It's probably got sugar in it. It just again, it just blows my mind. And so I can't have that.
You've been
I can't have that.
A tough time.
And I can't have beans. I love beans. So one of the chilies will be, get this, without beans.
Oh wow.
It has to be. I don't have beans. I can't have beans.
That's okay.
Anyway. So anyway, the point being is like with all of this stuff, like I will say I'm kind of excited for it to be over.
I can't imagine.
Right?
Yeah. I would think.
But yeah, it's like so much stuff. I'm like, I can't have it. Can't have it. Yeah. But I will say this. It cuts down on your snacking quite a bit just because you just can't. What are you going to snack on?
You can't eat anything.
I can't eat it anyway.
It's like, wait, does this... no, Snickers have sugar. Darn it. Okay.
Yeah. Snickers is way off the table.
Yeah.
Now, I will say it's been good, though. You can see a noticeable difference in how I feel, like just... within a week or so.
Yeah.
It's been it's been actually a lot of fun. And I actually have enjoyed the challenge a little bit.
Yeah.
I've gotten to cook some really odd things just because I'm like, well, I made my own ketchup the other day.
Hey, there you go.
Now, I will say my ketchup was not that great. But I did. I made it so I could have ketchup because I wanted ketchup. And it's like, so it's like a whole,
some interesting stuff,
unique challenges that kind of came along with it.
Do you know... I shouldn't be asking a question. Do you know if there's any diet specifically for Advent or for Lent? Sorry, like someone's like, there's this many days in Lent. Well, here's our like special made up sort of diet we do. Or something. I wonder. Well, maybe we'll look that up for next time.
Okay. We're gonna look up special diets for Lent.
See if it's a thing.
I have one in mind, but
right?
it's not what you think. But
okay. Well,
we'll get to it. We'll get to it. Yeah, I think that's it. I think that's all I have. Well, everybody, you know what? As we kind of like, that's how we're going to close. Well, I think that's all I got.
All right.
Anyway.
Well, see ya.
Yeah, see ya. No, but I do. I don't think I have anything else for church chatter. So everybody out there, listening or what have you, thank you so much for joining us today, and hope you guys all have a great day, great week. God's blessings to all of you. Bye.
Bye.